The House and Senate energy panels have not yet agreed to approve their joint resolution to grant the President the authority to address the looming power shortage for the summer months. The key issue of this agreement is the pass-on provision. Tonight, we are joined by the Chairman of the House Energy Committee, Congressman Reynaldo Umali. Welcome, sir, to NewsLife.
Hi, good evening, Cathy, and good evening to all our televiewers.
Sir, currently there are two issues. Let's discuss them one by one. One is the agreement on the duration of the emergency powers, and second is about the pass-on provision. Let's talk about each.
That's correct. In the case of the time horizon, Senate is looking at from March until June of 2016. Whereas from the very start, when we started all of our hearings, we were only talking about a duration of 5 months from March to July. So when this was brought out by Senate, then this is where we were stalled also, because we wanted to define how much really it would cost to extend it to 2016. So that is one issue that we failed to resolve. But more or less, I think that can easily be agreed upon. The real ticklish issue is the pass-on provision, because we are on opposite ends. You know, on the one hand, Senate wants it passed on to consumers, whereas the House of Representatives wants this to be either subsidized or the point is that there should not be any additional burden to the consuming public.
Sir, for the benefit of our viewers, what is exactly being passed on?
What is being passed on is the incremental cost of producing power through the ILP program, because when these establishments get from the grid, they only pay about 5 pesos per kilowatt. And when they get it from their own facility, genset in particular, it would cost them about 14 pesos. So that difference, the increment, is what will be assumed by government.
All right, and you said that there are differences in opinions when it comes to the Senate and the Congress. What is their opinion, since in your committee you are pushing that this will not be passed on consumers? As a consumer, we will be happy about that.
Yes.
But what is the argument of the Senate?
The argument of the Senate is that EPIRA decreed that there should not be any pass-on. There should not be any subsidy on power. And so the Senate looks at this as a subsidy when government assumes this cost. From our end, we're saying that this is only for a limited period, and this is because people had no responsibility for all of these crises, and so they should not be penalized or punished by making them pay the incremental cost. And this is, again, as I said, where we really got stalled.
So assuming that you don't agree on this provision, what happens next?
That is unfortunate, because EPIRA decreed that it must be passed on, so that if we don't agree, then the default is the cost will be passed on.
Sir, we're already nearing the summer months. In fact, we are already experiencing the summer heat. What has been the current situation now in terms of power? Are there areas who are already experiencing the effects of El Nino?
Well, we have had some red alerts, but so far, so good. In fact, even when Malampaya stopped producing nat gas, we still experienced yesterday a net surplus of about 900, and today we expect to get a net surplus of 1,100. Of course, we had a problem with Suwal last week, but then we were able to fix it on time. So I guess it's all about managing all of these resources, and so far so good. Hopefully we will not get any rotating brownouts.
Is there a specific month throughout the year that we are anticipating the brownout, just in case everything will not, if the measures will not be put into place and if nothing is done?
Well, actually, we have already done a lot in terms of getting the private sector and the public to be well aware of the situation. In fact, when we started hearing this as early as August, we see an increase already of participation under the ILP from 115 megawatts of something like about a few companies, now to about, I think, we're at the level of 1,049 with about almost 400 participants. So you see a situation where much had been achieved since the time that we started conducting hearings. Of course, on the other side, the plants that we were expecting to be rehabilitated got rehabilitated. I think about something like, let me just go through my notes. Additional capacities are already to the tune of about 800 megawatts. So with all of these actions taken, even without the joint resolution, we believe that we will be able to address our concerns.
Sir, speaking of efforts, the Department of Energy rolled out an information education campaign on energy efficiency. What is your assessment on this?
Again, I would like to think that the reason why we're still getting a net surplus is because of the efficiency and conservation measures being affected by our consumers. So I cannot really quantify how much had been saved via conservation or efficiency measures, but this should be factored in, or this should be a factor why we are still having some surplus as of today.
During the process of meetings or deliberations about the passing of the emergency powers of the President, an issue was raised on the suspension of the environmental laws to give way to the power crisis. What is the update on this?
Well, actually, in the course of our bicameral conference, we have already, we gave in to the concerns of Senate, and we did not push through with it. In fact, we had given much already to Senate with respect to the version that they presented. And this is just about the only thing actually that the House of Representatives wanted, which is that there should be no pass-on, because we feel for the consumers, and we do not want them to be burdened.
And so looking forward, we have the ASEAN integration coming, and we expect a lot of development and for the economy of the Philippines to grow. Are we prepared when it comes to the power situation in the country to catch up with the demands of the economy?
I think so. The measures that we have effected really are now being counted. In fact, as we speak, yesterday EWC came to my office asking for my help for some of the equipment that they imported, which are still stalled in the Bureau of Customs. And so we tried to intercede for them in that if this can be released soon, then they should be able to produce about at least 200 megawatts by June, and another 200 megawatts in a few months from that time. So, and then of course, I can only rely on the Secretary of Energy when he says that by July there will be no cause for concern with respect to the supply of power. So there is a lot of optimism when you talk of what the government has already done insofar as establishing additional supply.
And on that note, thank you very much, sir, for that reassurance. That's Congressman Reynaldo Umali, the chairman of the House Energy Committee.